Good afternoon.
Hi.
Could you please tell us your name?
Jennifer West.
And Ms. West, how are you employed?
I'm a teacher.
Now, I want to take you back to January of 2023. Were you a teacher then as well?
Yes.
What school did you teach at?
Richneck Elementary.
How long have you been a teacher?
23 years.
And what grade did you teach at Richneck back in January 2023?
1st grade.
Right away, pay attention to what the prosecution is building here. 23 years of teaching experience isn't casual background information, it's credibility. Jurors often weigh experience heavily because it frames whether a witness's observations come from instinct, training, or just a random impression. Question for you. If someone with decades of experience says something felt off, how much weight would you give that?
Could you help us understand where, if you know, do you know where Ms. Werner's classroom was?
Across the hall from mine.
Okay. Taking you back to that January 6th date in 2023, on that day, based on, for whatever reason, did you end up observing a student named JT while he was at recess?
Yes.
And where was your class at that time?
Also at recess.
Okay. And while you were observing JT, could you describe, just as if it was a movie that we were watching, just the actions that you observed?
He and another
And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I need to at this point because I forgot to remind you, we're not using any names of students. You can say a student or you can use initials, but please don't say the names of any students.
He and another student kept going behind the rock wall, and there's a large tree on the playground. They'd go back there and come back out, and I just was watching their interactions.
Do you know the initials of the other student?
RR.
And do you know the initials of the
JT.
first? Okay. So describe for us what exactly JT and RR were doing in as much detail as you can remember.
It's hard to remember specific details, but I did write down notes the day of, and I reviewed those before coming.
When you reviewed your notes, did that help you refresh your recollection about what happened?
Yes.
Okay, well, then what happened?
They were staying together, very close together. They kept going behind the rock wall, going behind the tree, kind of being secretive.
Small courtroom moment, big legal significance. Did you catch the objection? And the judge striking part of the testimony? Witnesses can describe what they saw, but when they start interpreting motives, like assuming someone was trying to avoid people, that can drift from observation into speculation. Trials constantly walk this line. Facts versus conclusions.
Trying to avoid other people.
Okay. I'll agree that the trying to avoid other people part should be stricken.
So sustained, strike that part, trying to avoid other people, but you can consider going behind the rock wall. Next question.
Ms. West, when recess ended, did you have a conversation with RR?
After we got back in the building.
Okay. And before I ask you to tell us what RR said, can you just describe his physical demeanor, how he appeared to you?
So I asked him to come speak with me to ask him about what we had observed at recess.
And before you tell us what he said, I just want to know his demeanor, how he appeared.
He was visibly shaken, nervous. I asked him what they had been doing, and he said...
Okay, hold on. Before you tell us what he said, I'll ask judge and counsel if we need to voir dire this witness. Just hold on just a moment, okay?
The courtroom just got noticeably quieter here. This is one of those moments where everyone understands the stakes are shifting. Up until now, we've been hearing observations and concerns. What comes next starts moving toward direct reports of possible threat, and that can completely change the energy in a courtroom.
Your Honor, I think based on previous rulings that the court will allow her to testify, but we're objecting for the record that any statements that she may have heard from are
Notice the sequence: report, confirmation questions, office call. That's important because timelines become everything in cases like this. Lawyers often zoom in on minutes, even seconds, because later they'll ask, who knew what and when did they know it? Keep that question in your mind as this unfolds.
Okay, you're continuing. Your exception is noted. Thank you. Argument proceeds, Mr. Jenkins.
Tell us what RR reported to you.
He first said he couldn't tell me, and I reassured him that he could. And he said, I can't. He said that he would hurt us, that he would blow us up. He was referring to JT at the time. And then he said that JT had a gun. And at that time, I asked him what it looked like to kind of confirm whether it was real or not. And he said that he saw the bullets. And I said, well, what color? And he said they were bullet colored. And at that point, he was crying. And I had RR come into my classroom.
And then once RR was in your classroom, did you place a call?
I did. I called the front office
And what was the purpose of that call?
to report what RR had told me.
Okay. And who answered the phone?
Mr. Sims, our music teacher.
Okay. Thank you. If you could give me just a moment. I want to now fast forward a little bit and jump forward. Later in the day, did some students come running into your classroom?
Yes, I think it was just before 2 o'clock.
Hold on. Can you back up from that for a moment and just walk us through what happened that you observed or heard in the moments before students came into your classroom?
I heard a gunshot, and I immediately knew what it was. And I went to my classroom door, opened it, and Abby's students came running out. And
This testimony shifts from procedure to impact. You're hearing less about systems and more about the human side of the event. Jurors aren't only processing facts here. They're also seeing emotional aftermath through reactions of the people in that room.
I ushered them into my classroom. And I could see that Abby was standing. She had just exited her room. And I could tell that her hand was bloody and there was blood on the floor. Once the last student that was on their way out came out, I shut my door and proceeded to lock down, turn off the lights, and settle the students.
In as much detail as you remember, can you describe the behaviors that you observed, the demeanor that you observed of the students as they came in?
They were terrified, many of them crying. RR was situated behind me. I was sitting on the floor with the students around me, and he kept repeating, I told you. I tried to keep you safe. I told you. And I just kept reassuring. There were a few students who were trying to tell me what happened, but I didn't want my class that didn't witness it to hear all of the details. And I just kept reassuring them that we were okay.
Were some of the children were crying?
Yes.
All right. Ms. West, thank you for your testimony. I don't have any more questions for you right now. Please answer any questions from defense counsel.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay.
I understand that you're upset, and That's reasonable. Did whose student was RR? Was that your student?
No, that was Abby's student.
Okay. Did you have a relationship with RR? Or?
I try to have relationships with as many students as I can. So, yes.
Okay. And when you had contact with RR after recess, could you tell us again what prompted that?
What I was observing at recess was RR and JT kept going behind the rock wall behind the tree, and I asked him to come tell me what was going on at recess.
Okay. Did you, during that recess time, did you believe that JT possessed a firearm?
I was not convinced until I spoke with RR.
Okay. So while the children were out on the recess, you did not feel a sense of danger or imminent harm to the children. Is that correct?
I don't really know how to answer that. We were kind of observing. I had been told that Dr. Parker had been made aware.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that statement.
Objection to that. If this is a question that he asked, and moreover, just a moment ago, he asked the question, what prompted her to talk to RR? And she's entitled to answer the questions that he asks.
And so, again, we don't know what the answer is going to be, and it doesn't make it necessarily admissible. But that is hearsay that she was told. So at this point, we cannot consider that unless it comes in under another exception.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next question.
Okay. So, based on your observations of RR,
Watch the defense strategy here. They're pressing on responsibility and decision-making. Who is expected to act, and what action should have happened in that moment. Notice how the witness keeps drawing a line between a teacher's role and an administrator's role. That distinction may end up being a major issue in the case.
you weren't convinced that he possessed a firearm. Is that correct?
I was convinced they were hiding something.
Okay. Had you believed that he possessed a firearm, would you have taken steps to exclude him from the presence of the other students?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
All right, I'll ask it a different way. If a student possesses a firearm, should you take steps to exclude them from the presence of other students?
That's the administrator or security's job.
So, as a teacher, you don't feel like if a child possesses a gun, you should take steps to ensure the safety of those classmates?
If a child possesses a gun, I rely on the people whose job it is to check the child. And
I'm not talking about checking. I'm talking about protecting the other students.
I understand that, but it also could be protection of the other students by not exacerbating the situation.
Okay, so you're saying if a student possesses a firearm, it's better to leave that student in the presence of other students so the students won't become exasperated? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I would contact security and administration, and they will handle the student.
Okay, so you're essentially saying it's not your responsibility to protect the students.
That's not what I'm saying.
What you're saying is you're going to rely on somebody else to protect the students. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Did you have any conversations with Dr. Parker prior to the shooting?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, I don't know that I would call it a conversation. It was an interaction that lasted about 5 seconds.
Okay. Did you tell her that you believed that JT possessed a firearm?
No, that was prior to my conversation with RR.
Okay. Did you possess any means to communicate with the office while you were out on the playground?
Based on my notes, there was a walkie-talkie. I personally don't remember having it in my possession at recess. I even can't remember what the protocol was that year because they've changed so much. sometimes there's one walkie-talkie per grade level. At this time, every teacher has a walkie-talkie, but I do not recall the specifics of the walkie-talkie that day.
So you don't remember if you had one or if Mrs. Werner had one? Or,
I do not know.
okay. Do you remember if anybody, you or her, tried to make an attempt to contact the office while out on the playground?
No, I did not.
Okay, that's fine. So you didn't observe Dr. Parker's behavior or interactions anytime?
Personally, no.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?